to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Madam Clerk. Would you call the roll, please?
Yep. Commissioner Robbins?
Here.
Commissioner Rushton?
Present.
Commissioner Bailey?
Here.
Commissioner Wessel?
Here.
Commissioner Sotis Little?
Absent.
Commissioner Alguier?
Here.
Commissioner Lautner?
Present.
All
And
present.
Patricia Sotis Little with prior notice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now on the agenda for public comment. Any public comment this morning? Any commissioner comment? Yes.
I just want to thank all the staff for the ceremony yesterday down at the Veterans Plaza for Memorial Day, and for the VFW for all they did, and everybody who coordinated it. Was really, I think it went off without a hitch.
Yeah, and a large crowd too,
Lovely turnout.
even though there was some confusion about the time.
Lovely turnout.
I loved the 3-year-old.
Am I?
No, well, yours too.
Oh, the girl, the speaker's
The
daughter.
Marine Corporal's daughter.
She was adorable.
Yeah.
She was the hit.
Who had her own ceremony.
Yeah, she got to sit next to Dad up there.
Any other commissioner
She
comment?
was cute.
Okay, we have one item on the agenda, and it's the county administrator hiring process. And Matt McCauley is here again. Thank you very much. Matt comes off of just writing a successful article in the Record Eagle about excellence in hiring, excellence in
Right.
employees. So it's a timely topic. Turn it over to you, Matt.
Yeah, well, thank you for this board being the muse, as it were, for that we should be looking for exceptional people here to work for the county. Per the timeline that we agreed to last time we met, we'd like to release the position description, the marketing packet on the 1st. I was based on what I felt were relatively minor comments, but I think I was able to incorporate all of them in the marketing packet that was sent to you Friday, I believe. So that's before you, and we also have to approve the job description. So I don't know in what order you so choose to approach this, but happy to follow.
Matt, did you say we'll release the marketing packet and the job description?
That was the intent on the 1st, yes.
Should we start and just take one
Sure,
look at this?
absolutely.
The
That's great.
we're on agreement that we're finished. Any comments on that, Matt?
None from me, I believe, but certainly I am biased that I was able to incorporate everyone's comments in this. I did, or was able to give it also to a copy editor who found a variety of grammatical errors, but I think it's, in my view, clean and ready to go.
Any comments? Any concerns, suggestions?
It looks really good. And
Thank
you
you.
truly got postcard pictures.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it looks really great, and I don't think there's anything we need to change that I saw, at least.
One thing the copy editor missed,
Oh,
the ideal candidate. So it has the picture of the building.
mhm. Oh.
Second paragraph, second line, the leaves in. There's no space.
Yeah, I see that, yeah.
That's all we find. It's pretty basic.
Yeah. Good catch.
Any?
I know who to call next time.
I repeat.
Anything
No,
else?
I think it's very grateful.
do we want to just approve this by consensus? Do we want a motion to approve as final? Seeing no motion, I think we've approved it, right? We did that really last meeting.
I think we're-
And Darcy said you tested the email address?
We have set the email address and it is working.
Just to be official, let's have a motion.
I'll make the motion that we approve the.
Thank you.
Marketing package.
It's been moved and seconded. All those any discussion?
Only that you don't have the link in here yet, so you won't forget to put the link in there, right?
For the job description?
Yes.
Yes,
So for the,
I did include for the email, the admin search email is in there.
okay,
Yes.
oh, mine doesn't have it. So-
Oh, okay. Yeah, when Darcy sent that, I copied and pasted
Okay,
that.
super. Good then.
Any further discussion? It's been moved and seconded. All those in support, say aye.
Aye.
By a vote of 7-0. Thank you.
I do have one more
6-0.
question. So
Yes.
when they have a dash between two words, I usually have a space dash, space. And they seem to have less letter dash and then a space. Okay.
Can
so
you use an
first
example?
On the right, third paragraph, second from the bottom.
Okay, the dash on Elmwood Township.
Yeah, and best in class above it has this, well, you know, they don't have. Yeah, dash and then space. You know, nobody's gonna care. Second page after Sutton space. Sutton space dash, then a space.
Okay,
Well, Matt
Elmwood
can
Township.
look at that again. Just confirm that with your copy editor.
I will ensure dash consistency.
Dash consistency. Because I look at below average. Yeah, the same thing.
Commissioner Rushton?
Yes, and I believe we're going to go to the job description in the next order of business. And I'm going to request a written copy for review on my desk.
You should have it, guys.
No,
Well, no, we have the marketing.
No, I passed them
Oh,
out.
yep, there's job
Oh,
description.
I'm sorry. Computer's sitting on it. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we will move to the job description, and Darcy's provided this for us. Thank you, Darcy. Matt, do you want to speak to it before we have discussion?
Yeah, so as I view this, this is as you have for all your positions within the county, and Darcy can speak to this better than I, that there is a formal job description. So it is different than the marketing packet in that regard. So it's more it's in the format of all county positions and is more of your formal analysis of the position that we would include as part of the marketing packet. But the intent is that that this augments and neither document is a standalone, that they're symbiotic to one another, I guess. From my perspective, this is good, but I also know that this hasn't been updated for a number of years. So if the board so chooses, we can certainly make changes to this as well.
Board like to take a minute and read through this and then have a discussion?
Sure.
Any questions, concerns? Yes, Mr. Walker.
under the paragraph that serves as chief personnel officer, I've always wondered about this bullet. In fact, I thought it said hiring, not appointments, but on the third bullet down, it says makes recommendations for appointment or removal of a non-elected department head. And we haven't been following that. There's been no recommendation. My guess is that there's supposed to be a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners for the appointment or removal. So I just think we need to be consistent. If our administrator has the authority to do so, we shouldn't be saying makes recommendations.
Yeah, I checked on that this term.
Okay.
In the past, the board has never been involved. That authority has always been with prior administrators.
Right,
So that should be changed.
that I think.
I don't think you want to get involved with that.
I don't think so either. So I don't know how to word that exactly, but unless we just say makes recommendations for appointments
Or has authority
or has authority.
for appointments and or removal.
That's a better word. Yes.
Good catch. Anything else?
Well, I think it needs to be more than that because it doesn't really spell out whether he's the only one, he or she, that makes those recommendations, makes the, his authority. Does anybody else have the authority? And I don't think we want to say sole either because I think
Has responsibility for the appointment and removal of departmental heads.
On board approval. Upon board approval.
Why would,
Does
Yeah,
the board
so
want
that's
to get
what we're
involved with
saying.
I don't think we should have board approval on that. The administrator should be able, he's running the company.
Let's talk about that. Any questions or concerns about that? My understanding is we've never operated that way.
All right, so I got another question then, and because that's a very good point. So this is for a department head. Do we want to have the Board of Commissioners have any input in a department head? I was thinking along the line of employees, right? Because our administrators help with hiring of inspectors and planning department employees, et cetera. And I don't think we should be involved in all of those. So I guess it kind of takes us to one step further now with HR. Are they going to be involved in that process too? So should it be, should we have two bullet points, one for department heads and one for employees, or does that come?
And the way it works now, the administrator provides the offer letter for all employees outside of the elected officials. For elected officials office, it's that elected official that makes the offer.
They make the offer.
I don't think that we should be involved in choosing department heads. We just don't know enough.
I agree with that.
And the administrator needs to be able to run his departments. And he's the one with the operating experience. We have none.
Other thoughts? Rick?
I agree. I don't want us to get involved.
Yeah.
I know on my other boards, typically the administrators will do the hiring, but then they'll bring it before the board for board approval. So. That just shows, I think, not necessarily for individual employees, but department heads. I think it's important that the administrator and the board be on the same page.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on that. When it comes to department heads, that's a pretty big position. Our elected officials, our residents choose. When it comes to our department heads, we're the next closest. We represent them. So I don't know if it should be that the board absolutely has to ratify what the administrator says, but I don't know if there could be a process of input too, could come from the Board of Commissioners, and only for department heads. I think as I said, employees get too far into the weeds, but I'm not opposed to us or the board being able to look at department heads, because those are really important positions here. I'm really okay either way, but I do feel like it could be a beneficial thing.
Commissioner Russell.
I guess I look at it like our chief deputy clerks, we don't get involved in that. Like you look over the jail, we don't have a say in who's the jail administrator, who's the road patrol lieutenant. I look at it the same way.
My thinking on it is similar to what I've heard, that I think informing us and keeping us informed is important, but I am very comfortable with saying that's the administrator's job. And that's what we hire him or her to do.
Don't slow down the process with another staff.
Any further discussion on that? Do we got some disagreement with a couple people saying we want board ratification. Got 5 of us, I think, saying no. Do we need a motion on that? When?
I make a motion that not be involved in the hiring of department heads as a board. I would just say that
I
that's
think
the
you should
administrator's
clarify what you
position.
want in the job description.
Yeah. So how do you want to say this? It informs the board. I make a motion that the administrator will inform the board of appointment or removal of non-elected department heads.
You say as authority for appointment or removal.
Sure.
To clarify that. I mean, that's what you're saying.
As authority.
Commissioner Lautner?
I think it needs to end with what Gwen's trying to, I agree with the second motion she tried to make. So, but we need to put something in the forefront that, yes, the administrator has the authority to hire or replace and or remove or the removal. So that's the part we gotta get in there first.
If you simply take out the word makes recommendations, just put has authority for appointment. or
Okay,
removal of non-
Okay.
Yeah,
Has authority.
that's clean.
Okay,
Simple.
and then,
Hold on. Do I still have a motion or, because I don't have a second, so is this not a motion at all? You're just
There was no
discussion?
second.
Okay, just check, just
Well,
double checking.
I will second.
You can't second your own. It's okay.
No.
well,
Her
so
amendment.
I think we're trying to get.
I've lost,
yeah.
I've lost
Did you
track of
amend
where
it?
No, let's start from scratch.
No, I'm just,
Let's
let's
from
start
scratch.
over. I'm just trying to help word it. So if we has the authority for appointment or removal of non-elected department heads.
Second.
Okay, wait, and will, well, I guess we kind of really don't need that. You're automatically.
I
going
think
to
if
go
the
to board.
administrator does not inform you,
Yeah.
then you have problems
Right.
between the board and
Yeah.
the administrator.
Yeah, we would have to probably.
Yeah, so.
So we have a motion, and I think I heard a second.
Yes.
Any further discussion on that? So it reads, what the description says, the administrator has authority for appointment or removal of non-elected department heads. That's the motion. All those in support, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
So,
Got that, Matt?
Yes, makes recommendations is replaced with has authority.
so I got another question.
Okay.
We did leave out another part of where I was going with that, and is that will HR have involvement in department heads?
I think, well, obviously it's up to the new administrator, but I would think they'd be involved with the process, but you want the ultimate authority to be with the
Okay.
administrator.
So it's gonna be assumed.
Yeah.
Okay, how about employees below them? You've been involved in hiring employees also.
Well, yes or no, I have faith in our department heads. I'm involved in the process, but I let them make the final.
You've been
decision.
involved in the
The all-
interviewing.
The official letter comes from the administrator, though. That could maybe change to.
That's
an
what I,
HR
that's where I was going.
director.
So we'll leave
But
that
that's
all
an
out and
internal
that would
thing.
transfer. Okay, that's kind of where I was going with that. Okay, that would make sense.
Any other under chief personnel officer bullets? Yes, Commissioner Lautner.
So will the administrators still maintain those master files for non-elected department heads and their staff?
We do that now.
Be under HR.
I kind of wondering. Does that transfer to HR? Does that stay under?
Well, it's in the administrator's office. It's just where we have space. I mean, the files are locked up in my office, so that's just a typical thing where we store the files. You agree, Darcy?
Does that make sense? Because we can't really amend this after we hire.
And we're all in the same space, so.
Okay.
Going down on the job description, serves as a member of the labor negotiation team. I'm sure there's support for that. Correct? Going down to property manager. Commissioner Lautner.
And this was when I was wondering about whether we have a new facilities manager. Will that be along with our new facilities manager or whatever we call that person?
If that's approved, I would think that'd be a major focus, but I think you still want the administrator overall.
Well, if I may speak, property management would be under the administrator's office.
Yeah.
So ultimately, he would have oversight of that property.
Yeah,
management.
no matter how it's structured.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
But I was thinking we would, it mentions the planning, like that might part will probably be done by our facilities management and then administrator can help make sure that.
Well, it's, no, this is kind of a living document. It can be changed at any time. This is a
Have to
guideline
be
for the
higher.
position.
Okay,
And it could be
Okay.
a new administrator with a different board, could have different ideas of.
we have a different title, that's why. I didn't-
Yeah, so,
Okay,
you know, I think the general overall responsibility is still there. It's just how it's broken down.
okay.
Moving down there, we have professional development expectations to include in 2 bullets. Any thoughts on that? Anybody have any comment? We don't have a section under board relations or responsibility to the board. I don't know if we want to consider that, but Chet does a wonderful job of keeping us informed. But I'm wondering if we ought to write expectations to the board in our job description.
Like the weekly report. Or timely.
Reports to the
Timely
board.
reports,
Updates.
yeah, timely reports and updates. Shall?
And then probably the second bullet puts up with us all.
Mhm.
Under supervisory responsibility. Looks good to me. Any questions or comments there?
Now, just to back up, do we want to switch? Were you thinking under professional development, a third bullet? Shall provide timely reports and weekly updates,
I was thinking of that
or right in that
as a
paragraph?
separate item.
Oh, I see,
Sometimes it's called board relations.
board relations.
That's a whole board.
Just timely reports and updates to the board. Under supervisory responsibility, any concerns? Under education and experience, I'm not sure this is consistent with what we said in the announcement.
That's exactly what I was gonna bring up. So within the marketing packet, you have, or that post-secondary degree, whereas within the job description, it specifically calls for a master's degree.
Oh, right.
Masters are equivalent.
It does say master's or equivalent. That's not defined by specific experience, though, so. For what it's worth, with the current labor market, I would suggest casting a wider net, not a smaller net.
I think so too.
So not have masters?
To for this, that you're looking at a minimum education level. So that would be my
Or you
suggestion.
could add the word preferred. That gives you
Preferred.
flexibility.
Absolutely. There's
If you
all,
prefer someone, but you get a great candidate that doesn't have a master's.
again, just what are opportunities where you're not limiting your candidate pool?
Yeah, I would prefer.
So how was the first way you worded that? You said the secondary has secondary.
Within the marketing packet says position prefers graduation from an accredited four-year college or university with major coursework in public administration, business administration, or related fields.
I liked it. I liked the way it was worded here.
With the, in the job description?
No,
or-
in the marketing.
Okay. Would you be willing to put master's degree preferred, but, and then what's in there?
The only thing I was thinking of is if we say, well, we prefer a master's and we get down to two really great candidates, but we like the one that doesn't have a master's better. Are we setting ourselves up saying, well, them coming back and saying, well, you preferred a master's and I have a master's and this person doesn't? I don't know. That's the only reason I would leave it out, just because I think Matt's right. I think we need to. Keep it broad.
I'm comfortable with master's preferred,
Mhm.
because we're not mandating it, but we do prefer it.
Yeah,
I do like the description in the packet, definitely preferred.
I didn't hear that.
I like the description in the packet. So yes, definitely preferred master's degree.
A master's degree preferred, but then include that in the brochure. Everybody except Melinda seems comfortable with that. Do you live with that, Melinda?
It's as long as we don't think we're gonna end up. Maybe the likelihood of that scenario is slim, but I just don't want to see that. be-
Preferred, but that still gives us an option.
Well, you could get someone with 20 years experience with shy of a master's, but you could have a bachelor's degree with no experience. So you have an option of picking. that.
Okay.
And you have the right
I think
to
we're
accept or
clear on
reject
both.
any or all
As long as we're
candidates.
not setting ourselves up, I'm good with that.
So just for clarification, I will be switching the master's degree, MA or equivalent preferred and a minimum of 5 years related experience. That clause in the job description and putting that in the marketing packet. That's the new education phrase.
Yes.
Okay, so hold on a second, because Kathy just let me know, you already did a motion to approve the marketing packet?
Yep.
So do you need a motion to amend it with the revision on
Probably.
what was just said?
Yes, we do. Anybody make that motion?
I would make that motion,
It is.
master's degree or equivalent preferred and a minimum of 5 years related experience and or training or equivalent combination of education and experience.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All those in support, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Now we're at the end of the job description. Do we have any other concerns about the job description before we, yes, Commissioner Rushton?
Yes, going back to the duties and responsibilities, when we get down and you actually read this, there needs to be some language change there. Prepares and coordinates the proposed annual budget jointly with the county clerk's office, comma, the accounting department, comma, and the county treasurer, comma, then presents.
Any suggestion?
You're saying commas, right? Yep.
County clerk's office, comma, accounting departments, comma, and the county treasurer, comma. We do have a separate accounting department.
Makes-
And the same thing on the second bullet point. monitors department expenditures and county revenue reports generated by the accounting department and the county treasurer.
Does that make sense?
So put accounting department and county treasurer. Is that what,
Yeah,
They're
Yeah.
separate departments. It has to be worded that way, as the departments are separate.
Promise in the word office to each color.
got that, Matt?
Yes, sir.
Okay, with that, I have the motion to approve the job description as presented.
So move.
Second. Well, that will be changed.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the job description as presented.
Rick had a question, I think. Rick, do you have a question?
Yeah, when we write the new one, we're gonna change, go change the October 2008,
Oh.
17.
Well, it'll be updated.
Updated on it.
Commissioner Russian?
I don't see anything in here where it says that the administrator would be also the chief financial officer of the county. If he's in charge of financing in his department, that should be in the job description as well.
There's a difference between responsible budget and being a chief financial officer. I think about two different functions.
But the accounting department is in your,
Yeah.
under your purview,
Right.
correct?
But that doesn't, unless you want them to be chief financial officer, that's a whole different type of candidate. Like, for example, when I was superintendent of school and travel, I had ultimate responsibility for the budget, but I had a chief financial officer put the budget together. And then I had to make decisions whether we want to cut. I mean, it was short where we had to cut, which was my responsibility, but the chief financial officer put the budget together. Made a recommendation.
So
So if you
then,
want to have a responsibility for the county budget, that's one thing, but to say that they're going to be the chief financial officer, that puts it under the perspective.
I would like to see it in there.
I mean, there are county administrators that are chief financial officer,
And I think I've expressed that from day one.
but they have the financial background.
To me, that means we rewrite the posting because we haven't talked about seeking a chief financial officer. We've said we're going to look for somebody that may have HR or may have finance background. But if we really want to hire a chief financial officer, we probably want to build in some other requirements.
That's a whole nother track. A track. we haven't done. So I think being responsible for is sufficient. Ultimately responsible because any finance,
Commissioner
that's a
Lawler?
different track.
I'm okay with that.
Mr. Rabbit?
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we should add the CFO.
He's going to have ultimate responsibility, right? Do you want to rephrase that because I think it was missed?
So can we write that ultimate responsibility or responsibility for finances in there? And does that meet with everybody's approval? How did you suggest doing that, Ken?
Well, what you can do is, I think I know what you're saying, you can do this and let Darcy, man, and I come up with the exact wording, we'll send it out to all of you. I think I know what you all are saying, right, Matt, Darcy?
I believe so.
Yeah, so we,
So what do you see that would be?
overall, I'm thinking out loud, it's just, the administrator has ultimate responsibility for the budget process.
But not a CFO,
That's a whole different
right? Thank you.
scenario.
We have a motion on the table to approve the job description in concept. And then the administrator will bring that
You
back.
can do it like you do with legal contracts, pending final approval by the board.
I don't know why we're taking a vote on this right now when we don't have all the information.
We did,
Commissioner Lawler?
we did make several changes. Do we want to clean it up and bring it back?
We can do that, except Matt needs to send this out.
Oh,
with
doesn't
the
send this out.
posting.
Okay, so, well, I made notes, I guess we all did. Yeah, so what you're saying is we'll approve it. If we approve it today,
I think this
Send
is
us
the
a
key
clean
that will
copy. I do
track
too.
candidates.
yeah,
The job
Yeah.
description could be modified.
Yeah.
I
as
mean,
soon as.
someone looks at this is a pretty standard generic job description. You can add that. If you're all in agreement that you should not have a chief financial officer, then I think go forward. If you want a chief financial officer, that's a whole different
Yeah, okay.
perspective. People are gonna look at this.
Correct.
This is the key document.
In terms of language, just as you were speaking, I came up with ultimately, the county administrator provides for budget process and implements the outcomes per board approval. Would that be?
Yeah, I think the budget process you do want to have, but that is one of your chief responsibilities. So I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
That way the board's still involved.
Exactly.
Could you repeat that?
Ultimately provides for budget process and implements the board approved outcomes.
We do have a motion. Do you have the motion there?
I just have Bailey, seconded by Eleanor to accept the job description with the changes.
Are we comfortable with that kind of a general motion?
I think we're on.
Any further discussion?
Consensus, not, yes.
All those in support, say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
5-1. Thank you. We are now where we want to talk rating and selecting. Matt?
Yeah, so what we discussed last time, as we moved through this process, that to come up with a rating system that you can objectively look at all of the resumes that come to you. So I think that when you look at, we've already spoke about these, but experience, education, those types of criteria, and then be able to put a weighting on the different characteristics that you're looking for with regards to an administrator. So just arbitrarily, if we were to say that you're scoring these with a total possible number of points of 100, and 20 of those points were weighted toward education and 30 towards experience. That way, when you're going through the candidates, you have a way of tallying your opinion in outcomes with regards to finalization. So that's how I would and have gone about this, but am open to other suggestions. What that does is it provides consistency from each of the reviewers, each of the board of commissioners when you're looking at the applicants.
When we were here last week, I think you asked Matt to have people send you stuff if they had thoughts on criteria.
Right.
Did you receive it? I sent you something other than what I sent you. Did you?
No, and I completely understand that it's holiday weekend and but so.
Commissioner Lander?
I think we could do a rating system, as long as we don't get tripped up with a rating system. And I don't know, do we have to rate off the bat, or can we see what comes in and we could rate off the bat? We could even have them in stacks or folders. So this one, all of them with a master's degree, all of them with more experience than that, or, a folder with master's degree and experience, or upper 4 with experience, or even, I don't know, even residency, I suppose. Because it might just come down to a candidate that that's from a county that maybe they've had some experience over there that, like Chet, I remember it was impactful when we hired him, his story about nearly being run out of town on a rail, but he dealt with such a difficult situation out there and ended up solving it with true leadership.
Mhm.
So that weighed quite heavily. So we could have that similar thing, and as long as we don't say, well, there's this one, but in the rating process, they weren't high.
And keep in mind, what I'm suggesting is for that initial scoring to determine who's to be interviewed. It becomes more subjective as you go through that interview process, but are there some core criteria that the board can agree to provide for that initial filtering, if you will, where it's 100% on paper?
I would say someone who has no experience
Mhm.
is gonna
Right,
right away be disqualified,
right.
I would think.
I would think that experience would be a significant weight in everyone's scoring.
I was
would agree with
thinking 50%.
Yeah.
For experience.
that. Mhm.
That's huge.
It's a simple process if you want to start, because I don't think you're gonna get overwhelmed by hundreds of applicants.
No.
And I think all 7 of you have kind of different views on what you're looking for. I mean, but at least what I've done before, keep it simple. Make 3 piles, A, B, and C, and see how close you are. A is the ones you definitely, as an individual, think,
So
Has
each of us.
yeah,
Each of us do
have A,
that.
B,
Yeah.
and
That's
C.
right, that I think
So
that's-
A pile is you definitely think they have potential, you definitely think they should at least be considered for interviews. B is, well, maybe, we'll see how they rack up, and C is you definitely are not qualified. And I bet if you did it that way, 7 of you would probably come up pretty close, at least with your
That's what I
A pile.
think too.
Because I don't think you want to interview 12 people, right? You said you want to keep it short.
No, we have.
And if you all come up with your
Fantastic
list and compare the 7 lists together, I bet you'd be pretty close on quite a few of the candidates. It's a simple process, but it does work. And that way you each get to identify what you,
I bet
perceive
I'd like
as a
to see us
strength.
score 'em
and I'd be
ourselves.
surprised if you weren't on the same page.
I think so too. I see what.
Looks workable. I sat down and I thought, and I think it's a healthy discussion to have. I identified the top 10 criteria that I was really looking for, and you have that in front of you as just one. I don't know if your top 10 list would be different, but I was kind of hoping that as a board, we could identify a list of criteria in advance that we kind of agreed upon. We're all looking for somebody who's had successful experience in prior management, who's worked with boards, who has good character. And my 10 list is there. Is that not a healthy discussion to have or before we start putting in A, B, and C?
So are you saying have some minimum criteria if we're gonna put somebody in the A file?
I think a discussion on the board about what qualities we're looking for would be helpful. Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. Honestly, I think this is very, very good. But as far as the ultimate, I think where this could come in handy is during the interview process. And we could each score them based on these or any more we want to add to it. So in other words, we're interviewing Matt and then what's like, well, okay, Matt, yep, okay, great. He said, we could put a check. He has prior experience in top managing. He's got a check. So, I seems to have strong character and work ethic. I like that. It's iffy. Yeah, right. So we'll give him a check. And on down the line. So I think that we could use this list in that way. I think, because I think it's got everything that we're probably going to be looking for, or at least that we want. It's a perfect candidate, right? It's possible they may not have community involvement yet. I know quite often community involvement might not start until their son or daughter hits Pee Wee League and then they become the coach or, you know, that a little bit later in life when they join a service club or something like that. So I like it and I think it's important, but I wouldn't want it to be a hang up. But it may be as we interview a great skill. We're gonna appreciate it.
Other thoughts? When?
So in summary, I like the 3-pile thing, and then this is a great list. I agree with Commissioner Love. It's a great list to use as we check off our final candidates. Do they have all these things? And it's a good differentiator.
And I don't want to be the author of the list. I think
But we can add to it.
we add to it and try before we have an interview, try to approve of a list. Okay. Any other thoughts?
I think, okay, please. Knowledge and respect of Leelanau culture. The culture here is completely different than it is in Birmingham or Grosse Pointe or Flint. And I know experience with school districts, you can be very successful in one school district and have a completely different experience somewhere else because the culture is so different. A different type of person may fit in well in Leelanau County, but would not fit in Flint, or vice versa. Someone could be a great administrator at an urban area, but not fit into a rural area. And that's something you should consider. And I think that's, when you had your past administrator, the one that lasted a year, from what I understand, his culture was completely different than was suited for Leelanau County. And I think that's the key. It has to be a right fit. It could be a great person, great skills, but if their cultural background is different than what people here are, sometimes it doesn't work out. Just like a school district, if you look at, it's no secret, if you look at happened with, for example, Glen Lake with the past superintendent, which is not a good cultural fit.
How do you word that?
Well,
Yeah.
that's, you gotta, I'd say respect for the culture, or background somehow.
Small town person?
When you look at, for example, Grand Traverse County, Nate Alger is probably gonna be there for a while, but he's local and he understood the culture. That made a difference versus some other administrators who came in there. I remember the first administrator at Benzie County, when I came here, he and I started at the same time. It was so evident from the very beginning, his background was not geared toward Benzie County. So it's something you can't really put on paper, but it is a critical part that you need to acknowledge.
Commissioner Reston.
Mr. Chairman, I need a clarification from the administrator. So are you recommending to this board that we only hire those from Cedar?
Oh. Well, okay, you're being more specific. Good one. No, but I think it's, someone that is used to an urban setting will probably, unless they're flexible, may struggle here. And that's fair for the board to know that up front. You gotta make sure it's the right fit. Out of fairness to that person coming in here. And if you don't think it's the right fit, that does play a factor. You look across the state, there's some administrators, just like school superintendents, who are very successful in one county, but the culture is different in the different counties. And sometimes, I mean, if you look at someone from Flint going up to UP, that may not work, or vice versa. So something that you at least have to acknowledge.
I think you would even have the workload too. I mean,
Yeah.
It's gonna be, you come to Wayne County up here.
Or someone, if someone has a large staff of people
Yeah.
that has to just top down management, that's not the case here.
Commissioner
How's
Lautner.
that?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And, plus they need to be warned about our winters up here too, in case they have to be coming from, Oklahoma or whatever. Somewhere we will ask them, we'll do a background check, and do we do drug testing? Can we require a drug test before we hire?
I think you can require it. I don't know if you want to. What happened last time is once you select someone, you don't offer them a job, you enter into negotiations. And that time, the sheriff assigned a deputy that did a full background search on me as part of the negotiation process.
I know I kind of took that away from the talk yesterday morning, that it's a big issue and it's becoming bigger. It's not always insurmountable, but it is a big problem. And I know I put on that route.
Mr. Rapp.
I don't think it'd be fair for a drug test if we're not asking the employees, right? We're asking the administrator, so.
I pushed for that though in the past, to be fair.
Well, that's a union issue.
Matt, what are you missing? What do you need that you don't have?
What I'm hearing, and I think it's a wonderful path forward. The three piles system for each of the commissioners to engage in that with their own perspective and eye on what we've already put down with regards to the job description, the marketing packet. And I agree with Chet that it's very likely that there'll be significant overlap through that process. And then concurrent over the course of the next couple of weeks when we're receiving applications, I'm happy to work with this initial list and bring in additional input to act as the basis for some interview questions once that interview applicant pool is selected for interviews. Yeah, I think that all sounds really great. And with regards to the conversation around fit, that's no different than any organization. That whether you're hiring someone to be the clerk person at a retail store or a county administrator, you're looking for a fit within your corporate culture, as it were. And that is not a checkbox type of situation. That's going to come out during the interview and through just parsing through people in a variety of different questions, because I agree that there are individuals, potential applicants from rural areas that might not be a good fit, and there could be applicants from an urban area that are an excellent fit. It really is, in my view, not only experience, but personality. And you can only get that when they're sitting here.
We are fortunate that you're working with us. Thank you.
Oh, I'm happy to do it.
Any final questions for Matt before we consider adjourning?
I think we've forgotten something.
I'm excited to just let this out to the world and for great applications to come in.
I am too.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
I noticed you will probably get most of the applications the last couple of days of the deadline. So if you don't get anything by 1st of July, don't be surprised.
Yeah.
Everyone usually waits till the very end.
We are now at public comment. Anybody want to make some public comment? We're now at commissioner comment.
Just want to thank the Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks for the hard work you're doing.
Yeah, it's fun. It's been a great group.
Commissioner Lutman?
I echo that, Matt. It's been a lot of fun working with you, so thank
Yeah.
you for all your hard work, continued work as we move forward. We had an email from somebody concerned about traffic on 641. I think we all received it. I tried to forward that on to our sheriff and I wasn't able.
I think he was copied on it,
Oh, if he was copied on it.
and I think the road
Yeah.
commission director responded to it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I know he's been very responsive in Cedar. We've been having people blow through a stop sign in Cedar and they're having them, so.
Brandon is very good responding to all those type of.
Okay,
issues.
at the road
He
commission.
follows up right away.
Okay.
I think within 24 hours or so, he reached out to that person.
Okay,
You know, the
And the sheriff-
problem being that I had somebody who was upset about speed limits. And if it's a county road, they're not gonna change it.
Well, speed limit's gotta be state police.
Yeah, it was a-
After a
it
long
was a long
study,
process.
It's not, yeah, it's not worth it now.
Yeah, and they said if you do the study, they might raise your speed limit.
It can be useful if you have someone who's blind.
A reminder of the golf outing on Friday It's sold out, and I think there's still volunteer opportunities for people that can spare some time starting at 7.
7 a.m.,
What time?
7 a.m. at Bailey's.
Why you don't start that early?
Well, it's a, oh, to volunteer. People coming. Yeah, it's, all the portions are sold out. I think they will far exceed the, goal 10,000. And, 104 golfers, and that's the maximum. And quite a few sponsors. There's a hole-in-one. You can win a truck, Bill Marsh. And lots of other great prizes.
Wait, you said, what do we rent?
A truck from Bill Marsh.
So if one of us win it, we can donate it to them and have their truck.
There you go.
Oh, yeah?
Well, you get the whole one first, then we'll worry about that.
Any other commissioner comments? We are adjourned.
And there'll be a special meeting June 7th. Next question. All
Thank
right,
you, Matt.
Matt, thank you as always.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. I
I'll-
think that it has to say, when I was in Washington with him,
Darcy,
he
you
caught
know
a
what time?
Uber for me. I never thought it was at work. So
I'll get a
to
note.
be-
I think one of